Hey, everybody, this is Ken Tucker with Changescape Web. Welcome to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. I'm joined by Paul and Ian today, and also a very, very, very special guest, Dr. JJ Peterson, who is head of StoryBrand and the host of the Marketing Made Simple podcast. Welcome, JJ. We're super excited to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me on. This is going to be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, JJ, I've been a big fan of yours and StoryBrand for a very long time. I've been a certified guide a couple of times lately for the last year and a half or so, and I'm also a Business Made Simple coach. So huge, huge advocate of everything that you guys do. It's fantastic stuff.
Oh,
So
thanks.
really excited to talk to you and just kind of get a little bit deeper dive here. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get started. Let's talk about what the StoryBrand framework is and why is it so important. And then also, I'd love to know approximately how many brand scripts you've actually done.
You're throwing out the big guns early, making me do math. We really started StoryBrand because we found in our own lives trying to grow our own business. We had a conference company. And also before I did this, I was an educator. I taught communication and marketing for years at a couple different universities. I currently teach at Vanderbilt. And I had launched a television show actually, and I was trying to sell it and all these different things. And we really found that for us, marketing became a little frustrating because you get ready to write an email, you get ready to create a website, and you have a great product. And you put stuff out there, and there might be a little bit of like push in the beginning for the people who know you, and maybe your family and friends, and people who've kind of been following you for a while. And then all of a sudden things either kind of plateau or go down. And you start thinking, we have this great product, the people who use it love it, and yet we can't communicate what we're doing in a way, obviously, that gets more people engaged.
Yeah.
And so we actually began to sit down, and Donna Miller and I kind of have a background in story, and he really began to look at Donna Miller's the founder of StoryBrand, and he really began to look at how movies worked in particular. And how, here's these great things that go up on the screen, especially at the time pre-pandemic, that were making billions and billions of dollars, and people were going to. And so everybody was engaged. And he was like, why? And what makes these special? And began to studying screenwriting and storytelling, and found that really all stories are formulaic. They're all built basically the exact same way. And he began to see, well, what if we changed our marketing to tell a clear story, one, and two, in that story, to position the customer as the hero and not the business. So many businesses try to make themselves the hero of the story, but we all wake up every day as the hero of our own story. We have problems we need to overcome. We have things we need to accomplish. And when businesses position themselves as a hero in the story, and individuals, the customer is already positioned as the hero in the story, you're now in competing stories. And so how do we create messaging that positions your customer as the hero and the business as the guide? So how do you play Yoda to their Luke Skywalker? And we began to do this with our own marketing, and saw, we were at the time we were doing a conference, and we're getting about 750 people at it, which was fine, but did not fill the room. And we did that about 3 or 4 times in a row, where it just kind of stayed at 750. And then all of a sudden we changed our marketing to position the customer as the hero, and we started selling out venues. And then we went to a bigger venue, and we'd sell out bigger venue. And so Don said, well, what if I can help other businesses do the same thing? And we thought we would help, maybe a plumber down the street or a friend, locally. And the very first company that called was Ford. Was Pantene. Okay. Pantene asked us to come in and talk on story between Google and Facebook. So it was Google on story, Donna Miller on story, and then Facebook on story, and ended up helping out with the Queen Latifah Diva with the Heart campaign. And then the second customer that called was the White House. Obama's White House called and asked us to help with their My Brother's Keeper campaign.
Okay.
And then the third customer that called, and this is all in a row, was Ford. And Ford called to ask to help for Don to come help rebrand Lincoln and kind of launch the new Lincoln brand. So you've seen the Matthew McConaughey, staring at a bull commercials.
Yeah.
And so that kind of came out of that work. And
Wow.
when those three companies called, we thought, okay, we have something here, and began to build a business that really was, I mean, we still work with very large, high profile clients, but really what we wanted to do, coming from the small business space ourselves, is that we wanted to help small businesses create marketing that was easy to do and works.
Yeah.
And that's really how it all started and why. And that's what we've been doing. So since then, I mean, we've worked with thousands and thousands of companies. I personally have probably done, I mean, it's got to be over 1,000 brand scripts that I've worked with in, 5-7 years. And so, and we continue to see how, what it really does is the StoryBrand framework teaches people how story works, helps them identify the key talking points in their story, which is really their customer story that they're inviting a customer into, where they get to be the hero. And then we show them how to take those talking points to create clear messaging with emails, lead generators, websites, anything. Anytime you're talking about your product at all, you can use these talking points to make sure that you create a clear story that ultimately positions the customer as the hero and grows your own business.
Yeah. I bet I've personally seen you do either a brand script or a review of a brand script easily, dozens of times.
Yeah.
And it's always an amazing process. It's
It
such
really
a powerful
is.
tool, it really
is. Because I do think, I before I got into this, I said I was an educator, and I also worked for an international nonprofit that was doing community development. I worked with 2 international, very large nonprofits. And here I was out of college. I had a communication degree. I studied PR and marketing. And I'm here. The organization I'm working with has these amazing projects that are literally changing people's lives around the world.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how do I create an email that asks for more money? And how do I create a website that tells the story in a way that actually is compelling? And so I was in that position of just always being frustrated of like, okay, do I know this email is going to work? Can I create this email well? What do I write? And when I discovered the framework, it really, it changed everything for me, because I was no longer, throwing spaghetti at a wall. I was like confident in what I was creating.
Yeah, definitely.
So, hey, how you doing? It's Paul here.
Hey, Paul.
So, you've worked with businesses of all sizes. What are some of the most common problems you see with websites?
Yeah, I would say there's a few. I recently read a statistic. This would be number one, is that 70% of small businesses do not have a clear call to action on their website. That's number one. That's like going into a store and not knowing where the cash register is and walking around for a while with something you want to buy and then going, I'll come back later. Well, we all know that delayed action is inaction, right? So, that would be the very first thing I would say to any small business. If you do not have a clear call to action, and what I mean by that is a button on your website that says book a call, buy now, schedule an appointment, something very clear, then you're missing out.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is, and I'll give 3 total, but there's one, they use insider language. They use insider language because they're so close to their product and service that they think they're being clear, but they're not. If you can't open your website and show it to a stranger, and within 3 seconds, that stranger be able to answer the questions, what do you do? How does it make my life better? And how do I get it? Then you're being too confusing, because the average person spends between 3 and 5 seconds on a website. So if you can't answer those questions clearly, where they don't need to ask any more questions like, so how do you do it? Or what do you do? Or what does that mean? Nope. If you can't do that in 3 seconds, then you're not being clear enough. And then the third thing, and this is really important beyond kind of the design and the clarity, is that most companies don't talk about the problem they solve for their customer enough. because in story framework, in a good story, the story gets interesting and hooks the audience when the when the main character, when the hero experiences a problem, right? So if I'm watching a story where a movie where the lead character is just sitting on a couch all day and everything's fine, and goes out and enjoys the sunshine, it might be pretty, but it's not going to be interesting, and people are not going to be hooked into that story. Well, the only reason why customers are paying attention to your brand or your product is because it solves a problem for them. That's why they're trying to buy. If they can solve the problem themselves, they don't need you. So the reason they're coming to you is because they need a problem solved. So when you can articulate that problem and talk about the frustrations that problem causes and the negative consequences that happen if that problem is not solved. For instance, if you're selling a mattress and somebody just needs a new mattress, what is the actual problem you're solving? It's not that they need a mattress. It's that they have back pain, or they're not sleeping well, or they have a different sleep number than their partner, right? So when you articulate that problem and then amplify it, talk about how frustrating that is and how overwhelming it is and how things could get worse if that is not fixed. When you do that, what you're doing is you're hooking your customers into the story that's about them, that their problems are going to be solved. So if nothing else, if people who are listening to this get nothing else out of this podcast, if you can look at your website and see, do I have a clear call to action? Is the language I'm using on the website clear so that people can understand it very quickly? And do I talk about their problems enough to hook them? If you can do those three things, you're going to see a higher engagement already.
That's awesome.
So if I can ask something real quick, does that whole process, does that change depending on the sales cycle? Let's say you have a product that has a 6-month sales cycle as opposed to something with a 30-day sales cycle. Does any of that change?
No, not in the overall story for the brand. Now, how you actually end up, say, marketing it with emails and with social media posts, it might change a little bit. So a shorter sales cycle, you need to amp up the problem a little bit more and a little bit quicker. So you may say you get somebody's email address or contact from a lead generator and you're selling shoes. Well, they're probably going to buy those shoes within the next week, right? They're like looking for shoes. They need shoes. It's a low price point. You probably need to hit them a little bit more frequently and amp up the problem a little bit more. If it's a longer sales cycle, you still use the same language. You may just spread out your contacts a little bit further, not bombard people so quickly, and really have some space to dig into the problem a little bit more. Like you may send more testimonials in emails or videos or on social media that really have a customer talking about the problem they experienced before they worked with you, how you solved their problem, and then what their life was like after. If you're buying shoes or doing something like flowers for Mother's Day that you have to do really quick, you got to do that fast. But a longer sales cycle, you can actually spread that out and go a little bit more in depth with the story.
Awesome. JJ, Ian here. Can all businesses benefit from having a website with a clear message? I think the answer is pretty clear.
Yeah.
But to add on a second component to this question, are there businesses that you've come across in industries, B2B, B2C, whatever it is, where the StoryBrand framework doesn't work so well or works especially well?
And this is, I probably shouldn't say this on a live chat but I'll say it anyway. The only business that I have found where I personally will not take money to consult with them is an artist. That is it. And only because it's actually a lot more nuanced. It still works, but if you're a band, you're not really talking about you solve this problem. What you're really doing is creating like a tribal mentality and a brand kind of feel more than you are like, hey, do you need something to do Friday night? Are you bored? Well, we have a concert for you. Like a music artist or somebody selling a painting. You don't solve a physical, tangible problem. So it still works. It's just more nuanced and a little bit more difficult. But every other industry it works so well. And I would say it especially works for those who are in the technical, like have really technical language, because they're so close to their product that they're using language that just doesn't communicate well to their audience. Like they don't know what you do. Another thing, B2B. I think sometimes people call us, and say, well, does this work for B2B? And the answer is yes. And they say, well, can you give us an example of how this works? And I say, StoryBrand. We are B2B.
Right.
So I go, we built an entire business and help people all around the world that are businesses. We work with businesses. Now, with the nuance there is you're not going after a specific customer, you're going or a specific person, you're going after the business as the hero. So what does the business want? What is the problem the businesses are experiencing? How do we solve the problem for the business? And what does the life look like for the business after they've worked with us? So yeah, I mean, the more complicated your business is, the more hard, the more you've even grown a lot of times, like the more you've grown and have brought in a ton of different messaging and, you've merged. I'm actually flying literally as soon as we get off this talk right now. I have my suitcase packed right behind us and I'm headed to Indianapolis to work with a company that it's grown insane. They're an international company that has had mergers with like 5 or 6 different companies. And so they're bringing in all this different messaging, all this different perspective, and we're getting everybody on the same page to be able to communicate clearly. And so it works for, I could tell you, I probably worked with every type of business there is, even and nonprofit, and this works.
Yeah. So speaking of nonprofits, I wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit more because I'm board president of the Modern American Dance Company here in St. Louis. I got to get that plug and that shout out for that.
Love it.
But I love the fact that it works really well with nonprofits, but it's different, right? Because you're talking about solving a problem for the constituents that are served by the organization, not somebody who, I mean, it's just different. But you have to reach out also to the donors and to the sponsors and supporters and community. So can you talk a little bit about that and your experience? And I love the fact that I didn't realize that you had worked at a nonprofit before.
Yeah. When it comes, nonprofits struggle with this a lot as well, because you're going, well, in reality, our customer, quote unquote, is the donor, right? So we need to create messaging that targets the donor, that gets them to engage and gets them to donate ultimately or volunteer. So you go, the easy answer then is the donor is the hero of the story. So you create a message that identifies what problem do you actually solve for a donor. So that's one way to do it. But the way that I really like to do it is just a little bit nuanced, is you tell the story with the people who you're serving as the hero of the story. So let's, for instance, take water wells in Africa. Like say you're a nonprofit who builds water wells in Africa. The hero of the story is the single mom who needs to get clean water for her kids. So you identify the different talking points that tell her story. So what is it that she wants? What are the problems that are getting in the way for her? How do we position ourselves as a guide, the people that can help her win the day? What is our plan for her? Now, where the difference comes in here is that then the call to action does not go to the people you're serving. The call to action goes to the donor. So you say, so give, and then you finish her story so that she can avoid this kind of tragedy and experience this kind of success. Those are I just kind of went through what we call a brand script, the 7 talking points of the brand script. And so you really position her as the hero of the story, and the donor is the person you give the call to action to. And the nuance of there is that really then the donor becomes almost the producer of her story. Instead of being the hero of the movie, the donor being the hero of the movie, the donor becomes the producer of her hero journey. And so that's like, those are the nuances. And when I work with a nonprofit, I actually create both brand scripts. I create one where the donor is the hero, and I create one where the recipient is the hero. And then we work those in together in all marketing. And you'll see this with a ton of different nonprofits, of where they might say, for this instance, the way to position the donor of the hero of this story is your marketing, or like say a campaign might be about Mother's Day is coming up and you want to make Mother's Day matter, right? So, but you're tired of buying perfume and flowers that are going to die tomorrow. You actually want to make a difference. So that's identifying what is the hero of the story the donor want, and what's the problem they're experiencing. And then you create the whole campaign around that, solving that problem. We've created this giving program where you can sponsor a well in Africa for this mom so that your mom has an amazing Mother's Day. That's one way. Or let's now do a different version of that where the customer is the hero. Where the recipient is the hero. You might say something like, on this Mother's Day, there are women all over the world who are trying to provide for their children. And the biggest thing that's getting in the way is clean water. We get this. We understand this. Here's how we're going to help these mothers have a great Mother's Day. You can give so that they'll do that, right? So it's a little bit of a nuance. It's a little bit of a change. But what you do when you create those two different brand scripts, two different stories, is you make sure that whatever story you're telling is clear and cohesive. It sticks together, because if you jump between the two stories, what ends up happening is our brain subconsciously can't actually follow that story. We don't, and then that results in less engagement. And it's tiny. It's not a huge thing of where, like, when we're looking at it, we would really go, oh, that message is completely off. But it is, because people are looking for clear, compelling, cohesive stories that they don't have to think a lot about in order to engage.
Yeah. Awesome.
So
It's definitely very nuanced, for sure.
Yeah, it is. I would say it is and isn't, in the sense of that it's nuanced when you understand. The biggest thing you understand, and that's the thing the nonprofits struggle with, is how do we speak to the people we're serving and to the donor?
Right.
The reality is you speak to both, but you do it through two different types of story.
That's right. Yeah.
Interesting. So, if you're a small business and you're doing any kind of research, looking at your marketing plan, you're going to come across this thing called a sales funnel. So why does every business or organization, why do they need one, and what is it exactly?
So a sales funnel really works to onboard your customers at the speed of relationship. And what I mean by that is that everybody, like anybody we come into contact with, we're ultimately, if it's going to go further, if the connection is going to go further, we need to try to build a relationship. So if I'm going out to try to, say, date somebody, and I meet them at a bar, the first thing I'm not going to do is walk up to them and go, "Oh my gosh, will you marry me?" Right? Like, now we've all heard stories where 1 in a million that works, right? But what happens with businesses is that's the model a lot of us are following. Is we meet a customer, we get their number, their email address, we've met them for the first time, and then we immediately go into, "Will you marry me? Will you marry me?" And it's essentially like, buy now, buy now, buy now.
Right.
When in reality, the way relationships work is that they build up slowly. There's really 3 phases to relationships. There's curiosity, enlightenment, and engagement. So commitment. I'm sorry, curiosity, enlightenment, commitment. And so the way that it works is when you meet somebody at a party, you're like, "Oh my gosh, they're cute, or they're funny, or I heard them tell a story, and I want to get to know them a little bit more." So you start out and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, where are you from? What's up? Oh, you like chocolate? I love chocolate. Wow, this is crazy." You start out with that very basic, just like building curiosity about each other. Then you might go on a few dates, right? And you learn more about each other. And then ultimately, if that relationship continues to move forward, then you move into a commitment phase, whether you become official or you get married, right? That eventually is where you go. Well, it's the same thing with marketing, is that you have to develop in your potential customers some curiosity about your product or service. You have to kind of spark something in them that says, "Oh, tell me more." Then you want to enlighten them. You want to engage them a little bit more through your website and through emails of teaching them about what you do and what you offer and how you can solve their problems. And then ultimately, you don't just want to stay there. You want to actually ask for a commitment. And you want to, and if you don't ask for a commitment, then you're actually saying that I don't actually want to be in a relationship with you, or I don't feel like I have much to offer, right? Like if you're in a dating relationship and you just keep going like, so you want to, I don't know, like coffee sometime, or, you want to learn more, right? It doesn't work. You eventually have to say, let's go on a date, or you have to say, will you marry me? Right. Well, so what a sales funnel does is it actually gives you kind of a template to create marketing collateral that invites people into a story and into a relationship with you at the speed of relationship. So the sales funnel, what we teach really is a sales funnel, and every small business should have this, consists of really 5 things. One, a one-liner. This is not a tagline, but a one-liner is a quick way to explain what you do and how you solve people's problems. So everybody needs to create a one-liner. Then they need to create a wireframed website, a website that actually communicates everything clearly. Then you need to create lead generators to ask people on dates, get their email address, get their phone number, give them something of value in exchange for an email or phone number. Then you need to follow that up with 2 different types of emails. And we say a sales email campaign. So basically a short 5 to 8 set of emails right after you get somebody's email from a lead generator or their phone number that onboards them to your product. So actually sells the product. And then the last thing is a nurture campaign, ongoing connection with your customers. So like a weekly or monthly email that offers tips, tricks, value to your customer to help them overcome their problems. So that sales funnel does all those things. The one-liner and the beginning of your website, the header of your website, is all about raising some curiosity. What are you about? And all that those 2 things are supposed to do really is say, tell me more. Like that's what you want a customer to, after they hear you talk about your business or look at the header of your website, you want them to go, tell me more. That's it. Not explaining everything, just getting them curious. Then the rest of your website and lead generators are really built on the idea of enlightening your customers, showing them how you work. What are some special things about you? What is the plan you have for them to solve their problem? Then you move into the email phase. Nurture emails continue to connect with your customer and enlighten them, and sales emails ask for the commitment. And that's the natural flow of relationship. And so every small business, if you don't have this, you really need to first start out by creating a clear message. What is your story? What are the talking points that you are going to do that invites customers into a story that they get to be the hero and you are their guide? Then how do you create marketing collateral out of that? And the marketing collateral we talk about is those 5 things: one-liner, website, lead generator, sales emails, nurture emails.
Awesome.
Ian, I think you have a question.
Yes, I do. I apologize. I was waiting for Paul, but he asked that last question. Sorry. Many businesses, I actually really like this question. I think it's important. It's actually a question I have, JJ, when I've gone through the StoryBrand framework for myself or my clients. Many businesses have more than one core product or service. So how do you build a website with a clear message, of course, on the homepage and follow the framework there? But then how do you translate that into the other products and services and make it cohesive? Or what if the products and services aren't really very cohesive? How do you then blend that together?
Yeah. So there's 2 different ways to approach that. My favorite way, I'll give you my favorite way first, is really to put kind of everything. I would just say, like, pretend like you're putting everything in a bucket, and how do you create an umbrella message for all of it? So for StoryBrand in particular, we have online courses that help people clarify their message. We have a live workshop that people can come to where they can get coached through the framework to create a clear message. Then we have private workshops where we work with individual companies. And then ultimately you can hire one of our StoryBrand certified guides, people who will help you create clear messaging and marketing. If you don't have a marketing team, you need to hire an outside agency. We've certified marketers who can help you with that. And then lastly, you can become a guide, right? We certify you. So there's really like 6 primary products that we're working with, and they're each targeting different people, right? With different problems. Now, ours still fit under an umbrella message pretty well. Ours is create clear messaging that grows your business, right? So that's the umbrella brand script for all things with StoryBrand. Whether you become a certified guide, do a private workshop, or do an online workshop, you're creating clear message that is going to attract more customers and grow your business. So the easiest thing is on your primary web page, then you need to have that umbrella message for everything. It's a little bit more vague. It's not quite as specific as going into all of the details of every single product and everything you do, but you keep that kind of big umbrella message. Then on that page, you have ways for people to self-select the product that they're really most interested in. Then when you go to that product, now you're being much more specific with your brand script. What is specifically the problem this product solves? And for us, where you need to identify really is, how does the 6 different products that we offer solve the problem differently? That's how you differentiate in your products and your divisions, right? Is how do these products solve that overall message problem just a little bit differently? And you want to be clear about that so people can self-select and go to those pages. So that's really the easiest way, is to really start that way with the umbrella and then boil down from there. The other thing is to almost start the exact opposite, is create a story, a brand script for each of the individual products and each individual division of your business. And then what you're going to see is the commonality between those two. We always think, oh, everything's so different. It's so crazy. It's all this different stuff. And it's like, well, I bet if you really write it all out, you're going to find some commonality in all of it, that everybody who's coming to you wants this, whether they're buying one product or another, they really ultimately want this. And we solve this global problem for all of these people, right? So you can either start with the umbrella and then kind of go down from there, or you can start with the individual ones and find the umbrella out of that. And so then when you're creating websites, what you're really looking for then is, anytime you solve the problem differently, or your customer has a different problem that they're experiencing, that should probably be another page on your website that people can click into. So don't try to tell every story on your main page. Tell your main story on your main page, and then tell your individual ones on separate landing pages. And that's important for 2 reasons. 1, so you're not confusing and overwhelming people on that main page. And 2, when you put out lead generators or social media or a podcast like this, you can send people to the specific page that will specifically solve their problem. So that's the fastest way. And then, to answer kind of your last question of what if what you're doing is completely out there and has nothing to do with the other things, then what I would say is, 1, the first question I ask, because this happens a lot when I'm working with a company, is I basically say, how much money is that thing making you? Yeah. And how much focusing in that area what is it costing you in the other spaces? Because if you're getting 3% of your income from that side thing, then unless you really want to grow it and you see a huge potential in the market, it might be time to say, yeah, that's not something we do anymore. Let's actually put wind in the big sails, and let's focus on the things that we really know can grow and can focus and make the money on, and leave that money on the table. Leave that 3% income that you were making over here on the table. And then that's the very first thing I do. Because I actually worked with a very large company, $200 billion company. And I was talking with them about their products, and they really were trying to brand themselves as 2 different businesses. They were one thing, and and then I don't, because I am trying not to be too specific here because of an NDA, but
Right.
they were trying to build their business off of these two different spaces. And it was really been frustrating for like a year. And we spent an entire day really trying to figure out, like, how do we put these two things together? And towards the middle of the afternoon of day one, I said, okay, let's just actually break down the money. How much comes through this other product that you're saying? And they said 10% of our income comes from this other product. So it's a $200 billion company. 10% of their income came from one division. 90% came from the other. It wasn't like there was like 500 stuff. 90% came from one. And so then I said, now, of those people who are of the 10%, what percentage of those people bought the other product first? And they said 95% of the people. Wow. And I said, you are not these two companies. You are one company. Keep your overall messaging about this one product. Then when people are in, you can sell them on the other product, but don't try to become the two messages.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is I just say, where's your money come from? Let's put wind in the big sail and let's make this ship go faster. The second thing is that if the thing that you're doing that is really completely off base of your overall message, then maybe have one small section further down on your website with one button that says interested in this, and then send them to another website that then really is only about that product or service. And that's just that, because you don't want to confuse people about what you do. So there may be one tiny thing that you do, and if it's not much money, then maybe it's time to get rid of it. But if not, if it's even a 50-50 thing, then just put a small section lower on the website, button, send them to another, and then let people hear that story there and keep the stories separate.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we've built a website with a clear message. We have a sales funnel in place. What do you recommend for businesses or organizations to actually get people to the website? How does StoryBrand help with that?
We call them lead generators. The primary thing you need to do is lead generators. And there's a lot of different, and lead generators, really what they are is something of value that you're offering your customer that solves a problem. So if you're a real estate agent, you want to give away something like 5 tips for first-time home buyers, or 5 mistakes people make when they don't go with an agent, right? So you're trying to help them avoid pain or gain some kind of value. And what that does is it positions you as an expert in the marketplace, and also create some reciprocity, right? If you give people something for free, give them a value, then they begin to trust you. You're building that relationship. So you want to create those types of things to get people in. And then you put that on your website so that they can download it when they come to your website, because they may not be willing to purchase right now. They want to get enlightened a little bit more. They want to go on another date, so they can download it there. But then you can also use that on social media. You can use that in paid ads. You can use that when you go on other people's podcasts or give a keynote address. You can say, hey, we have something of value for free for you. Go to this website, go to this space, and you can get it. Now you have their email address, and you can follow up with the rest of the sales funnel. So there's, obviously there's things like SEO that you want to take into consideration if your business really gets a lot of foot traffic from Google or something like that. If you're a local business like a hair salon or something like that, you want to worry about SEO. But even then, really the most effective thing you can do is create these valuable lead generators or valuable tips and tricks that you're putting on Instagram, on LinkedIn, offering a video course, something that gets people's attention and solves their problem. That will get you more email addresses. And then you can turn that into paid ads or free ads, and I mean free ads by being on other people's podcasts, social media, or you can do paid ads on social media, Google, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Ian and I have talked about this probably in past episodes along with Paul. StoryBrand, it doesn't explicitly talk about SEO, but when you create content that converts, and it's well-written content, and it's focusing on problems that you solve, those problems are the gold in SEO. That's what people are searching for. They're searching for how am I going to solve this problem? And
Yeah.
so if you have that alignment, and like you said, you build out and use different brand scripts to create different pages on your website that talks about, okay, I need paid ads to get traffic to my website because I'm not being found organically. Okay. I need social media because nobody knows that I exist and I want to increase my awareness and visibility in the community. Uh, you know, then you've got that alignment. So, I think I've talked to other guides as well, and it's like, I think it's a little bit of a mystery, but if we do a lot of SEO work, so for me, it's crystal clear how StoryBrand has a huge impact on SEO, and SEO is one of the best ways to get traffic to your website.
It is. And I love that you said that, because there are some people who go, well, what you're asking me to create is super simple. And so there's not enough words on my website to get people there or something like that. But here's two truths about what you're saying is that when you know the clear story, you're literally writing down what people would Google to find you, right? So I say that a lot of times with people when I say you need to create a clear message, and their website says something like, we help people achieve their dreams. And I go, nobody is Googling that to find you. Like, they're not. You're a business coach who helps people find life balance. Somebody would Google that, and so you go, so that's SEO, right? Like, what are people Googling you? And even if you want to get more specific, in the Dayton, Ohio area, like,
Right.
let's put that on there. Let's literally be so clear that if somebody Googled us, if they Googled the problem they have, they would find us. So that's the first thing. And so the brand script really helps you focus in on that. And the fact that you guys are using that makes me so happy, because so many SEO companies don't. And I think they're charging people money that is a waste. It's not resulting in more sales for them. And so when you actually use the clear message to create SEO, your engagement goes up. The other thing is if you get people to your website with all these tricks on Google and all these tricks on search engines, and then they get to your website and your website's unclear, they're not going to buy anyway.
Exactly.
So you just wasted your money to begin with. So the clear message, I always tell people, start with the clear message and then go to SEO. If you start with the clear message, you'll have the right words on your website, so people will find you, as well as when they get there, you're going to tell a clear message that will actually make them buy.
Yeah.
The other part I love about what you said there, JJ, is that when people engage with the content on your website, they stay longer, and Google pays attention to that, right? So duration of stay is actually a really key factor in SEO. So the more compelling and attractive content you create that does solve the problems that they're looking to solve, they'll stay on your site longer, and it will ultimately help your SEO as well.
Yeah.
And the thing is that people are now, depending on the research you read, receiving between 3,000 and 5,000 commercial messages a day. So we're overwhelmed with messaging all the time, and our brains are actually designed to tune out a lot of that noise, right? So anything that we cannot understand quickly and clearly and does not directly contribute to our survival and thriving, which is what really telling a clear story is about, is how do you solve these problems and what is your life like after? So if your message is too confusing, or it's not contributing to my survival and thriving, then my brain is designed to tune you out, because I can't pay attention to 5,000 commercial messages a day, plus everything else that's going on in my life, And so I have to go, boom, I don't understand it. It's gone. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how this is going to help me. I'm gone. And people are doing that subconsciously. So when they come to your website and it's a little confusing, or you add a ton of information that does not contribute to their survival and thriving, or makes a story about you, your brand, versus a story about them, then they're just going, okay, I don't have time for this, and they're gone. So people think, let's add more words. And that's where a lot of people make the mistake with SEO. Let's add more words. Let's add more information, because that's going to help people. No, if they come to a website and it's full of words, I'm not reading that. I'm gone. So they're spending less time on your website, and it actually ends up hurting you in the long run.
So going through all this and the whole story brand framework. What's the biggest misconception people have about the story brand framework? What part of it is they don't get or they don't understand?
Well, I think the question we get a lot, you've kind of hit on this a little bit, is that they go, but I'm a B2B business. And so, or they go, well, but what you don't understand is I'm like we're very technical. Everybody thinks they're unique. And, I'm here to say, yes, you are unique, you are valuable, you are loved. But, but when it comes to messaging, nobody is unique. Everybody is dealing with the same problems. And so people go, well, we've been around for 30 years, da, da, da. And I go, yeah, you're right. But I'm going to show you, well, we just started, we just launched. Okay. You're business to business, or we just sell direct to customers, or all this stuff. And I just go, yeah, it works. I'm telling you. And why it works is because we're all humans. Your customers are all humans. I all of a sudden I'm like, are they all humans? Yeah, everybody who's buying from you is human. I don't think any plants are spending money on your website. So we're all humans, and we're all driven by the same motivation, and we all understand and process information very similarly, whether it's nuanced, complex, whatever. We all process. We're looking for a clear story. And why I keep coming back to story is that story is actually how we process information. We make stories in our head. We get all this like information, and then subconsciously what we do is we actually organize that information in a way that tells a story in our own brain. There's an academic called Walter Fisher. He's really we call him the kind of the godfather of narrative theory. And he would say we're all homo narrative, meaning we're human storytellers. No matter what we do, we organize information in our brains in story. So if you can, as a company, no matter what type of company you are, tell a clear story, what you're doing is you're not just telling your story, you're inviting customers into a story, right? That they don't have to create on their own. They don't have to think about. They become the hero automatically in the story. And it really gets rid of any dissonance, gets rid of any confusion, and allows the customer to ultimately go on that journey in a way that makes sense and solves their problems. So yeah, the biggest misconception is will it work for me? Will story actually work for me? We're a very technical company. We're a B2B, we're a nonprofit. Will it work for me? And the answer is yes, story will work. When you tell a clear and compelling message, it works.
One of the things that drives me nuts is when I hear people talk about StoryBrand, the next words out of their mouth are, how can we tell our brand story?
Yeah.
It just drives me nuts. It's like, you clearly don't get this, right?
Yeah.
You are not the hero.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I think, and here's the truth, is in reality, most of us don't want to be the hero. That's, I think, where a lot of, especially small businesses, feel dissonance with marketing, right? They're like, I don't want to be a hard seller. I don't want to be this. I just want people to buy my product because it's a good product and it's going to help them.
Right.
And so they feel like, well, I need to talk it up and I need to brag and I need to, tell everything we do and put all the facts about everything. And they don't want to do that. Like small businesses, we're like, I got in this because I'm passionate about this. I want to help people. And it feels like marketing can sometimes be manipulative and it can be pushy. And so that's what we want, but we feel like we have to be the hero. The reality is, in stories, in movies, heroes are the weak character in the story, right? We think of them as heroes because we think of them at the end of the movie. But really, throughout the whole movie, they're up and down. They're insecure. They're overwhelmed. They can't do it. They have a lot of failure. They struggle. They get arrogant. All these things. And then by the end, they're really transformed into the hero. The whole journey is about them becoming the hero. So if we as a brand position ourselves as the hero of the story, we're actually positioning ourselves as weak and insecure. The guide is the strongest character in the story. Gandalf with Frodo and Yoda with Luke Skywalker. They're the strong, they're stable, they don't change, they're confident, and they help the hero win. So for when people go, well, I need to tell my story, I usually just say, yes. Okay, great. I can help you do that. And then I help them with a little bit of a paradigm shift and say, here's the truth. You don't want to tell your story. You want to invite a customer into a story where they're the hero and you're the guide.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And JJ, my question for you was going to be, what is the most challenging industry you've done a brand script for? But I think you've answered that, right, with your previous examples. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, what I love your energy. You give such good information. What charges you up the most about working with companies?
I think when I see the lights come on, when we talk about this stuff, and I'm like working with, say, a private company, private workshop, and all of a sudden they go, oh, this makes so much sense, right? And it's that thing of where, I hear all the time, we've been in business we've been trying to do this for 20 years. We've been trying to tell a clear message. And when I see those lights comes on, I literally get chills. Even still, I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I still get chills when I see people light up and go, oh, we get to be the guide. Oh, and this is how we tell the story. Oh, this is going to make everything so much easier. And that over and over and over again. Because at StoryBrand, we do the same thing. We see ourselves as a guide, not the hero. So our customers are our heroes. And when I see them have success and see the lights come on, oh, that's what keeps me going.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, JJ, thanks so much. I mean, I could talk to you all day, but I know we've got to be respectful of your time. Do you have any other last thoughts you'd like to share? And do you have any call to action that you would like to ask for our viewers or listeners?
Yeah. So I think for everybody, I would say the biggest thing is I'll just make the first thing really practical. Look at your website. And I want you to look at it and answer the look and see if your website makes the same mistakes I talked about earlier. Are you missing a good call to action? Have you clearly explained what you offer? Is there clarity, no confusion, no inside language? And do you talk about your customer's problem and how you solve it? Look at your website. And if you don't do those three things, just fix that first. So that's kind of the practical call to action. The second thing I would say is if you're interested in finding out more about StoryBrand and beginning the process of just practicing how to create a clear story, we have an online brand script. A brand script is just the tool that we use to help people create their story. It just has these 7 elements of story in it that help you create clear messaging, clear talking points for all your marketing. And you can actually go and begin the process of creating your own brand script. See how well you can do it at mystorybrand.com. It's just an online tool that you can walk through and begin the process of creating your own your customer's story and create talking points for that. So go to mystorybrand.com, just a free resource that you can use to begin the process of clarifying your message to grow your business.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, JJ. And for everybody who is intrigued by StoryBrand, I highly recommend going through the workshop at least one point in your career. Do it for your business because it's going to make a huge, huge difference. Thanks so much, JJ.
Oh, thank you guys. This has been a blast.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.